He has joined us. We are thankful to you, sir. And I must say, he is the real inspiration behind organizing this event. During this lockdown period, he has been leading us from the front in connecting with the educationists, industrialists, people from the corporate world across the globe for interaction with the faculty and the students on very contemporary issues. I'm greatly thankful to Mr. Christian Bothoff from Germany who has joined us today as the keynote speaker for this webinar. Mr. Christian, I welcome you to Baba Ghulam Shah Badshah University, and I'm hopeful that we are going to benefit from your words of wisdom. I'm thankful to Dean of Students, Professor G.M. Malik, and I welcome you, sir, to this webinar. I welcome Professor Asif Hussain, Dean School of Engineering and Technology. I welcome Professor Naseem Ahmed, Dean School of Management Studies. A hearty welcome to my friend, Dr. Ashik Malik, a renowned peace activist who has joined us. And a hearty welcome to all my colleagues, my friends, students, and scholars who have joined us for this webinar. So welcome you all. I must say that this welcome address has to be done by our Dean Academic Affairs, but he is not around. So I'm doing this. It is an honor for me to do this duty. And I must say that I'm missing him badly in this webinar because he has been with me and all us for around 50 webinars that we have conducted during these 5 months. So before starting the event, I must introduce with you our keynote speaker, Mr. Christian. He has been researching and documenting questions of nonviolence, pacifism, and conscientious objections since 1987. His work has been quoted by scholars like Surendra Bhan, Margaret Chatterjee, and various other scholars across the globe who work on Gandhi. He has published several books on Gandhi and Tolstoy, including a book on Leo Tolstoy's social philosophy and several books on Mahatma Gandhi in correspondence with famous contemporaries. In 1986, he compiled articles and historic documents for a 2-volume publication on the history of US pacifism for the John Kennedy Institute for North American Studies at Ferry University, Berlin. He was a professional advisor for conscientious objectors and head of peace education media office for the Evangelical Church District in Berlin and for the Evangelical Church between 1991 and 2006. He created 21 exhibitions on nonviolence and pacifism for the non-profit association Gandhi Information Center. He is also the president of Gandhi Information Center, Berlin. In 2007, he took part in the Satyagraha conference at the invitation of the government of India. The result of this conference led to the UN resolution on June 15, 2007 for the International Day of Nonviolence, which is celebrated annually on October 2, the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi. Sir, we are highly thankful to you that you have joined us for this webinar. Now, I request you to kindly enlighten us with your words of wisdom. It is over to you, Christian.
This is such a great joy to meet you again, and such an honor to be invited by you. And I'm almost speechless because this has been a dream of mine for many years. Such a intense dialogue, intense interaction between members of the academic community, transcending the continents and highlighting the crucial importance of nonviolence and nonviolent resistance in our age. It's not just because of the ecological crisis, but also because of many other dangers facing humanity, I want to tell you that there are some ecological dangers from asteroids and comets, which might endanger the world, but also from volcano outbreaks and the effects. But also, as we know, there are man-made dangers which we are facing as cosmopolitan contemporaries. And these man-made dangers are not just the weapons of moment when they are used against life, but also many other, we could say, silent dangers, like the ecological devastation of our oceans, which are really a serious threat for the survival of mankind. And that is the basis on which we should gain a new understanding of our modern prophets. Those ancient prophets, of course, like Lao Tzu and his Tao Te Ching, like Buddha, like Jesus, and the wisdom of Sufi saints in Islam, like Rumi, and certainly the great wisdom of Indian philosophies of nature, and also the great wisdom of the Jain philosophy on nonviolence. They will all become very precious during this age. And certainly this is a sciences. It's an interdisciplinary effort. We are challenged to promote by meeting each other. And it is certainly with the attitude that we all are imperfect. We can just add and contribute to the collected wisdom, and that there are no real experts in this field which we can rely on, but we shall always continue our critical thinking and encourage a critical theory, and then a strong commitment to social service. And I highlighted some virtues which I have missed during the past decades, although so many people in the world are carrying these virtues in their heart. This is the compassion and empathy to think from the point of view of the other, and to see the same, I would say, face of God in each one, mostly in the poorest, you know. And then this compassion and empathy might lead us to improve and to uplift the situation of those who are in need, who need collaboration, cooperation, who need support, who need mutual aid and solidarity. And I thought about a proper topic for today, and I think it's one word which somehow became fashionable, but which is which has many meanings. It's the word resilience. You know, it is a ecology and resilience. These are two keywords for our time. This resilience, we should think about the difference between resilience and renitence. No, but these virtues are not new. This is an attitude which we find in our ancestor, modern ancestor, Henry David Thoreau, from the United States of America, a transcendentalist inspired by Indian philosophy, by Indian wisdom, through his friend Ralph Waldo Emerson. This is a precious school of thought, which some people denounce as utopian, but which was not. On the contrary, it was the nucleus of a progressive movement against slavery and war during the 19th century. And this movement had an enormous impact on contemporaries and can only be understood by reading the messages of those who lived during this time. It was the time before Abraham Lincoln. It was the time when there was an official abolition of slavery in the British Empire. This was a time when the first peace organizations were founded and world peace conferences were organized in Manchester, Paris, Brussels, and Frankfurt in 1850. And this was the time when it was clear that revolution cannot mean violence in the end, because violence is destructive and destroys all the human values and destroys even nature as the basis of our life, and that there should be an alternative to a revolution with violence as a kind of non-violent revolution. And that was bitterly necessary because this non-violent revolution was the only chance to get rid of a system of evil in the eyes of Henry David Thoreau and his friends, the transcendentalists in Concord, Massachusetts, in the United States of America. And I prepared some thoughts about Henry David Thoreau. Now, let me tell you first that I've been in India first time in 1985. And one of the purposes of my stay was to find books of writings of Mahatma Gandhi to study his philosophy of nonviolence. But on my way during these 3 months was until June of 1985, I came across a few books which astonished me, which surprised me, Indian publications. And I want to show you 2 of them, just to tell you how relevant these ideas, which I want to describe, are for students in India. This is one of these books. It's called Henry David Thoreau, A Study in Indian Influence. And the author is R.K. Dhawan. And later, I found another Indian book which I can highly recommend because it's a scholar who wrote this book, and which might not be so so well known, but which is a basic book to understand what was going on in the 19th century with all these great highlights influencing Gandhi later, like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and those who read their works like Count Leo Tolstoy from Russia. And this book I show you is also written by an Indian author. And this is the author. So I want to show you that these books, which can be the basis of future studies, highlight the fact that those who influenced Gandhi were themselves deeply influenced by Indian philosophy, which encourages all of us, but certainly you in India, but also those who will listen to what I'm saying or what we are saying here in future from all over the world, just to think about this confluence of thinkers, this, you can say, mutual inspirations, this transcontinental inspirations of ideas. Now, fourth exhibition of these 21 on nonviolent resistance, which you find on our website. I give you some information in the chat. Fourth of this exhibition paid homage to the creator of the concept of civil disobedience, Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau, a transcendentalist at heart, lived in Concord, Massachusetts, along with Ralph Waldo Emerson, Margaret Fuller, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and many other pioneers of nonviolent revolution in the 19th century. All of them were ardent abolitionists. They wanted to abolish slavery. And the wise young Henry of Walden Pond, near Boston, Massachusetts, refused to pay poll taxes as his aesthetic gesture. This is a word of Allen Ginsberg. As his aesthetic gesture to protest the US-led war against Mexico and the evil exploitative system of human slavery. Why do I say aesthetic gesture? It was clear that by not paying the poll taxes for many years, there would be no change, direct change. But it was a gesture. It was a gesture of disobedience, like those who are, sitting on at railways which are carrying nuclear weapons, like Allen Ginsberg did, or the famous actor Martin Sheen. This was civil disobedience. These were many, many activities like this. And these famous celebrities, poets, and actors, they went to jail even for their actions of civil disobedience against the nuclear industry. That was just an example how influential the thoughts of Henry David Thoreau were on the movement against the Vietnam War during the 60s. And later on, the Swords to Plowshares activities of Daniel and Philip Berrigan, who literally tried to convert swords into plowshares by pouring their own blood over nuclear weapons and by burning draft certificates with napalm, without damage for human beings, of course, as a symbol against the Vietnam War. The Catonsville story of Catonsville was also put into a drama, a play. These were all Thoreauvians following civil disobedience as an expression, and the background music of our exhibition on Henry David Thoreau was his favorite hymn, Tom Bowling, by Charles Dibdin. So the presentation was most beautiful. It was an instrumental song playing in the background. And we included quotes from Thoreau's essays on Captain John Brown and the duty of each individual citizen to follow her or his voice of conscience to resist the government by civil disobedience. And I want to give you the direct link to this exhibition so that you can see it. And so you can also listen to the music, the fine music, and the lyrics of this wonderful song, which was Thoreau's favorite one. The exhibition was called Civil Disobedience, Reflections Against Slavery and War. It was created in the year 2009. So this is the link. Henry David Thoreau wrote following: under a government which imprisons any unjustly, the true place for a just man is also a prison. A minority is powerless while it conforms to the majority. It is not even a minority then, but it is irresistible when it clogs by its whole weight. If the alternative is to keep all just men in prison or give up war and slavery, the state will not hesitate which to choose. If 1,000 men were not to pay their tax bills this year, that would not be a violent and bloody measure, as it would be to pay them and enable the state to commit violence and shed innocent blood. This is, in fact, the definition of a peaceable revolution, if any such is possible. So that was the basic idea behind Thoreau's war tax resistance. He wanted to, not just to perform it as an aesthetic gesture of an individual who is giving a symbol, a living symbol of renitence and dissent, a very important key word, dissent, but also he wanted to organize war tax resistance on a collective basis. To organize war tax resistance as an organized effort to disable governments to keep up the evil system of slavery and to expand the territory of slavery by leading a war against Mexico that was then. And it was the reason why a good friend of Henry David Thoreau, Shepard, the sheriff of Concord, said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I have to arrest you." So some relative of Thoreau paid after one night, but Thoreau's impression during this night in jail were so profound that he gave a lecture in the local school, for adults, a kind of community center. And he was a key holder of this. And his female family members were the first abolitionists. They inspired Thoreau to follow their path. They were the women of heart who knew that each human dignity is at stake, irrespective of color of the skin. They were the first anti-racist activists who were propagating Black Lives Matter in the 19th century. And they inspired Henry David Thoreau, and he gave a lecture. He was a good speaker. He was someone who liked to read poetry, and but who loved nature and went into the woods for he wanted 2 years to live in the woods, build up a hut, gardening, observing nature, learning. But it was just 1 year. So nevertheless, it was his independence movement, because he went into the woods during Independence Day of the United States of America. So he wrote a book about this, Walden, or Life in the Woods. This was read by Mahatma Gandhi. It was inspiring Gandhi. Also his essay on walking, on the great effect of walking in the life without principle. These books were read by Gandhi and appreciated so much that Gandhi quoted Henry David Thoreau. And now I want Gandhi wrote about Henry David Thoreau. Many years ago, there lived in America a great man named Henry David Thoreau. His writings are read and pondered over by millions of people. Some of them put his ideas into practice. Much importance is attached to his writings because Thoreau himself was a man who practiced what he preached. Impelled by a sense of duty, he wrote much against his own country, America. He considered it a great sin that the Americans held many persons in the bonds of slavery. He did not rest content with saying this, but took all other necessary steps to put a stop to this trade. One of those steps consisted in not paying any taxes to the state, in which he was imprisoned when he stopped paying the taxes due from him. Historians say that the chief cause of the abolition of slavery in America was Thoreau's imprisonment and the publication by him of the above-mentioned book after his release. Both his example and writings are at present exactly applicable to the Indians in the Transvaal. This was an Indian opinion, April 1908. Sorry, this was an Indian opinion in September 1907. 1907, it was before Gandhi invented satyagraha as a new term, based upon this combination of three concepts. The non-violent, non-cooperation concept of Leo Tolstoy, the civil disobedience of Henry David Thoreau, and the notion of passive resistance, which was the official label in 1906 when Gandhi launched his first campaign. You know, Gandhi preferred then to bring a new word to combine these three elements and said, civil resistance is my term first. And then he substituted this civil resistance. He explicitly said civil resistance. He substituted this word by finding a term, firmness in truth or clinging to truth, satyagraha, agraha, and satya. And he knew from his Indian background that satya and sat, there's an inseparable connection. And so he derived much inspiration for his ecological and pacifist philosophy through Indian sources of wisdom, Henry David Thoreau. And this essay, which was written because of his lecture, on the basis of his lecture, was published 1849. The first title was Resistance to Civil Government. And then later it was called Civil Disobedience, or On the Duty of Civil Disobedience. But Gandhi wrote a sequel of the basic thoughts of Henry David Thoreau in his Indian Opinion under the title Duty of Disobeying Laws, because Gandhi stressed duty, the duty of the citizen, civic duty, you say. And Gandhi wrote for all so-called Asiatic or Asian passive resistors, also Chinese, you know, and from other Asian countries. He was a representative of different Asian communities, which we should never forget. And this system of indentured labor, which he faced in South Africa, I kind of call it semi-slavery, was also applied by the British colonialists in other parts of the world, Mauritius, Fiji, etc., and East Africa. So David Thoreau, that was what Gandhi wrote. David Thoreau was a great writer, philosopher, poet, and withal a most practical man. That is, he taught nothing he was not prepared to practice in himself. He was one of the greatest and most moral men America has produced. At the time of the abolition of slavery movement, he wrote his famous essay on the duty of civil disobedience. He went to jail for the sake of his principles and suffering humanity. His essay has therefore been sanctified by suffering. Moreover, it is written for all time. Its incisive logic is unanswerable. Civil disobedience presupposes the habit of willing obedience to laws without fear of their sanctions. It can therefore be practiced only as a last resort and by a select few in the first instance at any rate. Non-cooperation too, like civil disobedience, is a branch of satyagraha which includes all non-violent resistance for the vindication of truth. So now I gave some ideas about Henry David Thoreau's universal message for us today, and just want to add that there is a wonderful Thoreau Society, which is represented also in the social media, as we know, in Facebook, for example, and with Richard Smith, the great messenger of Henry David Thoreau nowadays, who is doing so much wonderful education work, ecological education work. And I also inspired my good friend from Yasnaya Polyana, Galina Alexeyeva, of the Tolstoy Place, just to closely collaborate with the Thoreau Society in the United States of America. And I would also suggest to you who listen to study Henry David Thoreau and enjoy his writings, because there's a good portion of humor and self-irony also, but so much wisdom to be found. And then also to directly collaborate with the Thoreau Society. But also you should know that Thoreau started with finding the wisdom, ancient Indian wisdom, in books. A friend of him organized, and he cherished these books. He produced his own shelves for these books. These books were so precious to him, So let us find a new relation to books, these pleasure. It's a contemplation, and all scientists should find moments of contemplation to get new inspiration by walking, by reading books, by listening to good music. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that I could give you some idea what can be done in future with regaining the wisdom of our modern prophets, Henry David Thoreau, Count Leo Tolstoy, Mahatma Gandhi, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because Henry David Thoreau was a major influence on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I differ from Albert Einstein's views in this. Albert Einstein, who I appreciate, of course, but I think that Gandhi, without reading Thoreau, cannot be fully understood. Because this was so obvious when you read in the Gandhi Heritage Portal in the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. When you read the Indian opinion articles, then you will see the strong influence of, even in his later years. And let me just give you the link to this collected works, of course, which is a reliable portal. You can say that this is and so I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Kristen. It was indeed a very insightful session that we had with you. So before moving to the next speaker that we have with us, I would like to know, just have your observations on that when we look at the contemporary scenario, that there is a bloodshed everywhere. Okay, the governments are highly unstable. There's the violence everywhere. So how do we find Gandhi in the present scenario? And what is the relevance of Gandhian philosophy in guiding the world leaders towards a society of non-violence and peace?
okay. Yes. You find it starting from the necessary mediation between warring parties who have border disputes. You need that was Einstein's proposal in International Arbitrary Court for such border disputes, and this should have an authority. So you need an authority of an International Arbitrary Court, but as we know that this was the great virtue of Gandhi, that he could mediate between the different parties in a trial, and he was preventing the loser of a court trial from committing suicide. So he was accepted because of his mediation capacity, skills. And it's not just a matter of professional mediation, which we can learn, but also the real facts on the ground, you can say, like Gandhi did in Champaran, Bihar, even asking lawyers to leave their office to support him. So you have a combination of challenges. One is documentation of the injustice or the differences of attitudes and opinions concerning a dispute. And then you have to mediate in such a way that all parties will find a peaceful way. And this shall be institutionalized with authority. That means legal authority. But how can you enforce law? Not with military as we see. In the end, there will be always a winner and a loser, but it should be a win-win situation. And that's the reason why you need new ways of communicating and mediating, but with establishing an authority. And my suggestion is to create a world federation with such an authority, that there will be no more war because of border disputes or any other territorial claims. And that's my suggestion, that if this can happen during these years, then that will be a step forward for mankind, I think. But at the moment, as you see, we are still caught in the system of nationalism and the idiosyncrasies and egotisms of nation states. Of course, all of this might have some historical, legitimation, but it is not legitimizing violence. It is up to us to create a new international structure, which is on an equal basis. And I think that India shall also promote such a new structure where there will be no more civil wars mostly. Nowadays, as you know, there are more civil wars than wars between nations. That's the reason why. And in Germany, there is an institute in Heidelberg. They are publishing conflict barometer. I can recommend you to download this file, conflict barometer of this Heidelberg Institute. It's an annual survey of all these international conflicts. And it is really interesting as a databasis. If you want to face this from a cosmic point of view, if you want to see it as a global problem, not just as a national problem or an international problem between your country and the neighboring states, if you see it as a global problem, then you should have a good database. So this is another reason to have a close collaboration between good-willing peace researchers and educationists all over the world. And you are certainly one major agent of this new era we should create.
Thank you, Christian. We will get back to you when we have more questions from the audience. We have with us Mr. Ashik Malik. We have this 5 minutes of slot till the next speaker will join us. And Dr. Ashik Malik is a peace activist. He has been working closely with various peace organizations across the globe. And Dr. Malik, if you can just speak for about 5 minutes on this particular theme. Then we will move to the next speaker of the day. Dr. Malik.
Thank you, Dr. Danish. In fact, speaking after Mr. Christian Bartow, it is very difficult. He has covered all the aspects and shown the roadmap for the just and peaceful world. And in fact, it's a great day today when the world was gifted with apostle of peace and non-violence, and to we Indians, the father of nation, Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi told that I'm not teaching anything new to the world. The peace and non-violence, they are as old as the hills are. But the one thing, as you asked the question to Mr. Christian Bartow, why violence is there? And if you can imagine, Mahatma Gandhi too was a political leader, but unlike other leaders, why he adopted the path of non-violence and peace, collectiveness, inclusiveness. It means the leaders of all generations, they need to follow the path of Mahatma Gandhi, how he collected the wisdom from different sources, from all the religion. He was so open, though he was, we can say, a religious person, but he was open to all the religions and how he assembled the wisdom. And then he applied for his activism, and how the events they turned him when he was traveling in probably in 1893 at Petersburg in South Africa, and how he was having the ticket of the first class, but he was thrown out as he's not able to travel at par with the people of a particular race. And he objected, what is the difference between the two human beings? Then when he came back to India, Champaran movement and his activism starts from 1915 to 1948. And Champaran, when the British government, they tried to produce the indigo and other cash crops. He said, no, my farmers, they are the priority, the food is a priority. And how he led the Satyagraha, the Champaran, and that was the turning point after the South American incidents. And then he led the Salt March and other, we can say, resistance, civil resistance in a very non-violent way. And in fact, he gave a new, we can say, a concept that wars cannot change the course, but the non-violence that is more durable, that is solution-oriented, and that has long-term impact on the humanity. Unfortunately, the two leaders who were the apostle of peace and non-violence, one is Mahatma Gandhi, and he was promoting the non-violence, but unfortunately, at the partition, some 2 million people, they died. And he too became victim of.
Maybe I can fill the gap a bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sir.
Is it okay, Mr. Rana?
Yeah, please.
Yes. So I would like to add. Mr. Malik, are you there again?
Yeah. So, yes. Just for 1 minute. Then you
otherwise, I would have filled. Yes.
Okay. So he too became the victim of the violence. Then Martin Luther King in 1968, he was promoting the non-violence. We can say Kingian non-violence, and he too became the victim of violence. But still, their principles, their work, that is the light for the world, and we should not lose hope. Some net problem is there. Okay. So how these two world leaders, they became victim of the violence, but still there is hope. They shown that no matter how much sufferings are there, non-violence must be way of the life. And there are some beautiful principles.
First of all, to remember all of us who are listening now, that today at this International Day of Nonviolence, Gandhi's birthday, there was a message of the United Nations Secretary General, and he said, in marking the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi, this International Day highlights the remarkable power of nonviolence and peaceful protest. It is also a timely reminder to strive to uphold values that Gandhi lived by: the promotion of dignity, equal protection for all, and communities living together in peace. And then he pleads for ceasefire, you know, overcoming the global pandemic. And then he says, now is the time to intensify our efforts. Let us be inspired by the spirit of Gandhi and the enduring principles of the United Nations Charter. But he should also have mentioned the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. So I think this to be added, we can go back to the 7 social sins. And this is a very important quote I want to add because it's also in the Thoreauvian spirit. And it is always quoted, you know, by so many around the world now, also with relation to this International Day of Nonviolence. And I want to give you the source in the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. In Young India, on 22nd of October 1925, the 7 social sins. It is not an invention by Gandhi, but he subscribed to this. And he said, a fair friend sends me crisp sayings by Dan Griffiths on crime and wants me to find room for them in these pages. Here are some extracts which a satyagrahi can readily subscribe to. State law is not necessarily moral. Crime is not necessarily immoral. There is a world of difference between illegality and immorality. Not all illegalities are immoral, and not all immoralities are illegal by the community. The real thief is the person who takes more out of society than he puts into it. But society punishes those who annoy it, not those who endure it. The retail and not the wholesale offenders. 7 social sins. The same fair friend wants readers of Young India to know, if they do not already, the following 7 social sins. Politics without principles, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, worship without sacrifice. Naturally, the friend does not want the readers to know these things merely through the intellect, but to know them through the heart so as to avoid them.
Thank you, Christian.
Yes.
It was nice listening to you. We have been joined by the next speaker of the day, Professor Vidya Jain. Professor Vidya Jain, welcome to this webinar from Baba Ghulam Shah Badshah University. Before I invite her for her lecture, it's my duty to introduce her. Professor Vidya Jain is the professor of political science in University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. She is the convener, Nonviolence and Peace Movement Commission, International Peace Research Association. She is the vice chair, Center for Global Non-Killing India. She has been the former director, Center for Gandhian Studies, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and the former secretary general, Asia Pacific Research Association. Professor Vidya is a professor who has an experience of over 38 years. She was the principal of Maharani College, Jaipur, which is Asia's biggest girls' college. Vidya Jain is a well-known scholar of Gandhian, peace, and gender studies. She has authored 7 books and innumerable articles in journals of national and international repute. She is at the editorial board of several journals like Journal of Human Security Studies, United States. She is a member of Non-Killing Political Science Committee of the Center for Global Non-Killing, USA. She is member of Research Committee of IPRA as well. Her book, Peace, Nonviolence, and Gandhian Concerns, was released in APPRA conference in Kyoto 2011, and New Paradigms of Peace and Research Asia Pacific Context in IPRA conference, which is translated in Chinese language as well. She is widely traveled to all countries of the world and different parts of the India. She works for youth awareness, women empowerment, and welfare of the deprived section of the society. She is actively involved in spreading Gandhian ideas and practices throughout the globe. Madam, welcome to you in this
Thank
webinar,
you.
and Baba Ghulam Shah Badshah University welcomes you. Kindly
Thank you.
deliver your lecture and enlighten us with your words of wisdom.
Thank you so much. Thank you, dear friend. Thank you, Professor. I'm very happy to see Professor Christine Beltoff. I'm aware about his work, and I'm extremely sorry that I could not join it earlier because, as you know, this is Gandhi Jayanti, and everybody on the globe is talking about Gandhi. So much of talk and deliberation. But where is Gandhi actually? I don't know. But anyhow, I won't go into that debate. But I'm very happy to be part of this dialogue, and I'm in a hurry because I have another scheduled program at 12:30. So without giving any background, I'll directly come, to a few of the points which I want to make, and I look forward to be with you in coming days and coming years. You would be happy to learn that Gandhian model of development is given a serious thought at the level of intellectual discourse globally. I mean, the two prominent, prevalent model of development have failed tremendously. The global liberal capitalist model and the Marxist-Leninist model, they haven't served the people. So here is a third model of development, which is the sustainable model of development, which is the appropriate technology of model of development, which is pro-poor, which is pro-people, pro-farmer, pro-worker, pro-Dalit, pro-women, and pro-mother nature. So this is, most accepted, and nowadays almost all interdisciplinary studies like peace studies, gender studies, environmental issues, conflict resolution, there are thousands and thousands of centers and associations, civil society movements, grassroots level movements, women movements are going on throughout the globe on the lines and postulates of Gandhi. Gandhi in 1909, when he wrote Hind Swaraj, however, his autobiography is very, very, very interesting. And today, when I was just looking at Gandhi, because I had the opportunities to talk on different issues, I was really, again, equally amazed that what a wonderful person he was and at what levels he was working. When you see his autobiography, you can see his journey, from an ordinary Mohandas Karamchand to a Mahatma. Here is a man who talks at the level of individual, society, nature, and God. And actually, he has no division. It's such a great champion of harmony and integrity and unity that for Gandhi, there is no discrimination, no division between the individual and the God. Forget about the division on the lines of caste, class, creed, language, region, and gender, the sort of things which are going on. I mean, this increasing violence on all lines and all kinds have actually brought Gandhi on center stage. We need him much today than any time earlier, So in 1909, when he wrote Hind Swaraj, which I feel is the manifesto, is the critique of this over-consumeristic, militaristic, materialistic, and mechanistic civilization which we are living, and which is the precise reason today the humanity is suffering. I mean, we are living in the darkest zone of civilization, and I think only silver lining is that some of us are talking about Gandhi. That can be a torch, that can be a light, that can be a lamp which can show us the path to come out of this. So if I say that this pandemic, is neither a natural disaster nor God has given to this to us, it is wholly, totally result of human misconduct. It is totally anthropocentric. The misbehavior of human beings has brought this. In last 50 years, 300 new pathogens have emerged. 70% of human pathogens, HIV, Ebola, influenza, MERS, SARS, they all emerged because we evaded forests. We disturbed the plant's life, and the viruses jumped from plants to animals. Later on, when we started crushing and killing animals for profit maximization in factories, swine flu and bird flu spread. And recently, when humans started eating and killing all kind of wild animals, this coronavirus spread began. I mean, human greed with no respect for others is the root cause of this pandemic and many more to follow. I mean, this earth does not only belong to human beings, it belongs to everyone. You just because you are born as a human being, you do not have the right to kill anyone, to cut trees, to consume and waste water. And I mean, you do anything, you are taking share of their lives, their light, their sunshine, their rain, their land, which is not permissible, you know. And when, I mean, in these lockdowns, when your streets were car free, we could see elephants on the suburbs of Dehradun. They were taking bath in the at Ganga, at Har Ki Peri. So you have no right to encroach other species spaces. You have to respect this mother nature. The Gandhi used to call earth as mother nature. You behave with this earth as you behave with your mother. However, nowadays youth is not behaving very properly even with their mothers and their parents. You know, when we were small, when we are kids, we listen to our mothers, we listen to her command, we obey her command. But as we grow up, we think now we can do on our own, and there is no need of, you know, listening to her, which is not true. You have to give a voice an ear and listen to the voices of mother nature. So this pandemic is a call to the most wonderful, wise child and children of mother nature, which is human being, that please behave yourself. Please stand and think what is your conduct, how much is too much, and this is the right time that you understand. You know, Dalai Lama says that I'm quoting Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama says, "Dear humans, please behave yourself. Please take care of yourself. Let me give a chance to clean, conserve my wonderful eco life. Otherwise, a time would come that Mother Nature decides to live without the humans. It can live without you also, without humans also. It has much, much better, wonderful eco life to serve and to look at." So, first thing which I want to say here is the thought of Gandhi, which is the most important. I mean, as you know, Gandhi is the biggest champion of harmony, of peaceful coexistence. Gandhi says, we are an earth community. We are an earth democracy. It is an interconnected web of life. No one has the right to encroach in other's life. You know, ideal society is built by brick, community by community. It is not a pyramid, it is a circle ever widening and never ascending. So I'm reminded of one liner of Gandhi which is very near to my heart. Gandhi says, I am there for you are, and you are there for I am. We peacefully coexist. We are not individual beings, we are interbeings, we are world beings, we are sons and daughters of one God. If earth is the mother, sun is the father, you know, sky is the father. So this kind of interdependence Gandhi is talking about, and this interdependence, this peaceful coexistence is not among humans, but birds, animals, plants, rivers, lakes, mountains. They also live on each other. They are also not independent of each other. When once Gandhi was asked by a man, you know, that Bapu, how do I address others? Gandhi says, who are others? There is nothing like others. You are they and they are you. We belong to each other. This is the sense of belonging. You know, we have to understand this. So this is very, very important that we really respect this mutualness, this peaceful coexistence, just leave this ego, this, you know, greed, and that I mean, from this economics of greed, you have to move to the economics of care, compassion, and love. So now I come to the second important ingredient which lead to peace, which lead to global harmony, which is respecting the mother nature. As I told, Gandhi used to call earth as mother nature. We have to adopt a model which is ecologically and ethically viable, not an economic model which is totally based on, you know, greed and greed and greed. I mean, now stop talking about GDPs, talk about happiness index. I maybe as a country like America, and they have higher GDPs, they be maybe strong countries, but we are the happy country. Now we try to understand that only wealth, only money is not sufficient. We need this love. We need this, the coherence, which is very, very important to live a beautiful life. So instead of greed, we need this, Mother Nature. And as Gandhi said, nature has enough to fulfill everybody's need, but it has very little to fulfill anybody's greed. As a mother, I am a mother of 2 sons. If I had 5, 6, 7 children, I could, take care of them. And even my sons, they brought their friends, I can serve food to them also. But I cannot listen to their greed. So there is altogether a different, because Gandhi said, the way you are consuming, the way you are wasting, you need 2, 3, 4 earths. You need 2, 3, 4 planets. If you have guts to create one more earth, then fine, go ahead, waste water. The way we are wasting water, I mean, this water, these resources, this energy is limited. They are unrenewable. I have to leave water for my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren. I cannot consume like this. So Gandhi says minimization of needs, smart uses of these resources. This is very, very important, because otherwise your future would be worse than this present. A good civilization is one where future looks brighter than the present and the past. Your model should be futuristic. This earth is a depth of the future generation. It is not a lineage or a legacy of the past generation. So take care of your future is very, very important. And resources has to be reusable, recyclable, reduce your wants. Gandhi talks of green technology, harvesting rainwater, eat food which is grown in your near vicinity, which would decarbonize the globe. Gandhi talks of alternative sources of energy, thermal, wind, solar, biomass, protect wildlife, plant trees, clean your habitat, clean your rivers, this is all sustainable model of development, because sustainability is simplicity, sustainability is non-violence. So here is a time that we talk of now, de-globalizing, because lot has happened in the name of globalization. Globalization has actually worsened the situation. I mean, at the name of global village and global integration, they are defooling us, are powerful, and we cannot integrate. It is subjugation. They are imposing you on, they are imposing themselves on you. They are teaching you what to eat, how to behave. I mean, there is no respect for diversity. We are diverse. I am Vidya Jain. I have my own recognition. Why should I speak their language, eat what they want to? They want me to consume. So globalization has done a lot of homogenization, lot of hegemony, imposing their talent, their resources, their technology. Now there is a time that we talk of our resources, which is Swadeshi, which is talking of the local endeavors, local talent, local resources. They may be limited, but I have to talk about cottage industry. I have to talk about small machines. I have to talk of village industry, the kumhar, the potter, the weaver, the small man who works with hand, because otherwise lot of unemployment would generate. I have the local appropriate technology. There are people who can make water bodies with the local talent of villagers. We don't need Harvard and Oxford professor for water conservation. Someone teach us, no. So respecting appropriate technologies, because now COVID has taught us this, that there is no time to go and have something from Kerala or from America. We can't travel so much. So you have to, you have to grow your own food. You have to develop your own education system. You have to develop your own health system. That is localism. That is Swadeshi. So, I'm not saying that, I'm opposing globalization, but I'm saying that there should be a balance between global and local. Gandhi also talks of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Whole globe is a family, but his model of globalization is not hegemonistic. It is harmonious. Gandhi was most globalized personality. A person who goes to England to study, works in South Africa, he reads all the foreign literature, Tolstoy, Ruskin, Thoreau. He's a great learner. Even on the day of his assassination, he was learning Bangla language. But that Gandhi says, keep the doors and windows open so that the fresh air can come in. But be aware that you are not swept off your feet. आप अपने जड़ों से ना उखड़ जाएं. You can think globally, but please act locally. So this is our most important thing. So there should be a balance between technology and culture. There should be a balance between development and ecology. That is the Gandhian model of development. This would really lead to, lead to the sustainable model of development, which would ensure peace and justice all over the world. And last point which I want to make here is that the whole Gandhian concept is totally based on, as you all know, Gandhian solutions lie with individual. Gandhi had great faith in the capacities, capabilities, and potential of this man, this individual. Be the change you want to see in others. He designs a new man. He designs a new woman. A man, he is all powerful. He has conscience, who is morally upward, upfront, who is ethically well trained. I mean, if you want to do satyagraha, you need a satyagrahi. So he trains a satyagrahi. He trains with 11 vows: satya, hinsa, non-possession, non-taste, swadeshi, and all 11 vows. You must have heard of that. So Gandhi says, you must have heard about this oceanic circle theory, where Gandhi, I am a drop in the ocean, but Gandhi says, I am the drop which contains the ocean. Without me, nothing is possible. So until and unless this individual, this drop of the ocean is powerful, nothing can happen. So Gandhi just gives, the taste of the thought of a non-taste. I mean, how much we eat, how much we waste. I mean, Gandhi used to eat very little, and Gandhi actually championed this whole control over your taste organs, sensory organs. Gandhi talks about celibacy. Gandhi takes the vows of celibacy, brahmacharya, at the age of 33, because conquest of lust is very, very powerful concept. It's very liberating concept. The concept of celibacy, especially in this world where there is a lot of violence against women, sexual violence, rapes, eve teasing, molestation. I really want to put and bring at the forefront the Gandhian concept of celibacy, which is empowering, which is liberating, which is very powerful, because it sees women not as a body. And Gandhi always say, why do you talk of body? We are not only bodies. I quote Gandhi. Gandhi says, rise above your sexuality, your masculinity and femininity, and work as friends and colleagues of the wider interests of society. So Gandhi creates a woman who is all as powerful as Kali and Durga. Gandhi says, when women and men are not equal, women is more powerful than men in moral powers, in moral strength. I quote Gandhi. Gandhi says, who is a woman? Women is mother of man. And she forgets the suffering involved in the joy of creation. Let her transfer this joy, this love to the whole of humanity, and let her forget that she can ever be object of man's lust. So here he gives a new definition of beauty also, I mean, media is teaching women to look beautiful, to be slim, to be fair, this figure, this feature. Whole attention has come on women's body. Gandhi says a beautiful woman is not one what media is teaching. Beautiful woman is one in whose heart God resides, whose conduct is ethical, who inspires men for satyagraha. I mean, Gandhi says in last birth I must have been women, because Gandhi had these so-called womanly traits: loving, caring, nurturing, sharing. I don't know, these are womanly qualities or these are humane qualities. Love, care, compassion, are they women or feminine qualities or human qualities? I don't know, but Gandhi had them. And Gandhi says in life, last birth I was a woman. And his grandniece Manu Gandhi writes a book which title is Gandhi my mother. Bapu my mother, sorry, Bapu my mother. She doesn't say that Bapu my father or grandfather, because Gandhi looked like a mother. And I want to say Gandhi may be father of the nation, but he's mother of humanity. The unconditional love which Gandhi has for an ordinary human being, only a mother can have, So this is very, very powerful thing. And I come to the last part, you would be happy to see that there are several movements going on throughout the world, which talks of this, which talks of, there is a movement coming from Hague, Netherlands, which talks of voluntary poverty, joy of giving, slow city concept. I am rich, but I choose to live like a poor. I have a Mercedes car, but I will ride cycle for 2 days, I'll go to villages, I'll go to with nature. I will buy a sari only and only when I'll give my old sari to somebody. Maybe my maid or somebody, some helper of me. But the joy of giving, I will share. So at the last, I want to say that there is a Gandhian manifesto which says respect life, reject violence, share with others, listen to understand, preserve the climate, and rediscover the solidarity. So this is the Gandhian manifesto to deal in this most challenging time of history. I don't know what would happen after 10 years. Nobody knows. This COVID is going to stay or go away. I don't know. I really pray God that please save us on Gandhi Jayanti and do something about it. It was wonderful to be connected, and I'm sorry I'll be just leaving because I have another webinar at 12:30. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much for your time and your words of wisdom. And we are hopeful that we will connect again on some other day.
Thank you. I'm leaving. Thank you, Professor Bitoff. We'll meet tomorrow also in some other program. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wonderful session with the two most eminent Gandhians of the present time, Christian and Professor Vidya. Now, I would like to request the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Javed Musarrat, to kindly address us on this day. Sir, it is over to you.
Thank you, Danish. Thank you very much. Mr. Christian Bartoff, President Gandhi Information Center from Berlin, Germany. Professor Vidya Jain, Director, Center for Gandhian Studies, University of Rajasthan, who has been the Secretary General of Asia Pacific Peace Research Association. Dean of Students, Professor G.M. Malik, Professor Naseem, Dean Management, Professor Mr. Ashak Mali, who is a peace activist. Ladies attending this international webinar on relevance of Mahatma Gandhi in contemporary scenario with reference to global peace, which is being organized by Media Cell, Baba Ghulam Shah, Badshah University, Rajouri. Our media advisor, Dr. Danish Rena and his team deserves all praise for their commitment in promoting knowledge and wisdom through such a webinar series during COVID times. And I'm also personally grateful to eminent speakers, particularly Professor Bartoff and Vidya Jain for taking out the valuable time and enlightened us with the wonderful discourse on this very apt topic of the day. During his lecture, Professor Bartoff referred about the ecological problems, putting philosophy, religion, and social sciences together, and the role of Sufi saints like Rumi and others in bringing equity and peace in society. He shared information on some very interesting books being published by Indian publisher about the thoughts of Henry David Thoreau and the relevance of Gandhian philosophy on non-violence. He talked about civil disobedience against slavery and during Vietnam War. Now, slavery was abolished in US because of the movement led by Henry David Thoreau and the influence of his writing on civil society. It came to me and many of us as the revelation that Gandhi was so influenced by Henry David that he got the concept of civil disobedience from his teachings. So thank you very much, Mr. Christian Bhato, for sharing us the universal messages of Henry David Thoreau, Martin Luther King, Leon Tolstoy. Your idea to promote research collaboration in this area is well appreciated, and it should be carried forward. Similarly, Professor Vidya made a very powerful presentation and candidly talked about Gandhian model of development, a model which is pro-farmer, pro-Dalit, pro-weaker section of the society, and pro-humanity at large. She very rightly talked about the etiology of the current pandemic and cruel behavior and greed of humans, primarily responsible for bringing us all miseries because we are not sticking to the teachings of Gandhi, who called nature as Mother Nature. So we should respect and protect Mother Nature, and we should believe in mutual coexistence. So ladies and gentlemen, humanity, as you know, is passing through a very difficult period. The corona COVID-19 has affected 213 countries and territories around the world. It is profoundly affecting peace and security across the globe. Today, the 2nd of October, marks the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, and it's being celebrated as Gandhi Jayanti. The United Nations has also declared the birthday of Gandhiji as the International Non-Violence Day. Mr. Bhato has already read the message of Secretary General of United Nations on this great day. Gandhiji perhaps was the only person who changed the concept of non-violence. He was the ardent proponent of ahimsa, which means doing no harm or injury to other people. He proved that ahimsa is the greatest force available to mankind, mightier than the mightiest weapon of destruction ever conceived by human brain. And I've read Gandhiji once said, and I quote, "My religion is based on truth and non-violence. Truth is my God. Non-violence is the means of releasing him," unquote. So the beauty of Gandhian values lies in the simplicity and timeliness. He emphasized on the principles of social justice, and his concerns are relevant even today. His contribution in developing the contemporary perspective on the concept of peace and non-violence has been acknowledged by the peace lover across the world. In fact, one of the most important contributions of India to the contemporary world is the message of non-violence and global peace, which was propagated and practiced by Mahatma Gandhi. His principles and values, though confronting the challenging conditions in today's world, they continue to remain unbeaten and march on. So ladies and gentlemen, we know peace originates from love, compassion, cooperation, goodwill, harmony, and selflessness. And the Gandhian philosophy is that the genuine and enduring peace can be ensured only through non-violent means. Gandhiji, throughout his life, strived to demolish the ever-prevailing ideology of violence through his words and action, and has cultivated the culture of non-violence and global peace. Indeed, Mahatma Gandhi was the great champion of peace to the world. The universality of Gandhian's principles can be utilized as the necessary first step to creating a peaceful world. Moral regeneration of individuals and an equitable social order on unnecessary requirements for achieving global peace. Gandhi's concept of peace was very broad-based, very broad one. For him, peace emerged from a way of life. Therefore, peace is intimately linked up with justice, development, and the environment that we have. So, ladies and gentlemen, some of you might be knowing, but let me share with you that as a tribute to the ideals espoused by Gandhiji, the government of India launched the International Gandhi Peace Prize in 1995. Now, this is an annual award given to the individuals and institutions for their contributions towards social, economic, and political transformation through non-violence and Gandhian methods. The award carries 1 crore rupees, that is 10 million rupees in cash, convertible in any currency in the world, a plaque and a citation. And it is open to all persons regardless of nationality, race, creed, or gender. And you'll be surprised to know that the jury consists of Prime Minister of India, the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, the Chief Justice of India, and the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, and other eminent persons as decided. They decide the award each year. So that reflects the importance of Gandhian principles and values. Lastly, in Indian context, for achieving sustainable peace, we need to address the inequalities in our society and the gaps in social protection, which essentially requires that the humanitarians, the peace actors, they should work together in very strong partnership with the government, regional and sub-regional organization, the private sector, and also a civil society be a part of it. So let us pledge today that to be the harbinger of peace and equality, embracing and imbibing the Gandhian principles for peace and non-violence, to make this world a peaceful place to live by establishing a bond of universal brotherhood, to become global citizens, transcending geographical or political borders, to build a global community on the doctrine of justice and equality. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, sir, for your words of wisdom. It is always a treat listening to you. And in the end, I'm thankful to all the guests who have joined us. I'm highly thankful to the Vice Chancellor who has joined us today and has enlightened us with his words of wisdom. I'm thankful to Professor Christian from Germany who has joined us today, and equally thankful to Professor Vidya Jain. I'm thankful to Mr. Ashik Malik, Dr. Ashik Malik Sahab, who has been very much cooperative in organizing this webinar. I'm thankful to the deans of various schools of studies, Professor Naseem Ahmed, Professor Asif Hussain, Professor Malik, and I'm thankful to all the participants who have joined us from across the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And in the end, I must say that Baba Ghulam Shah Badshah University is a beacon of peace and harmony. And this university is a model of diversity that you will hardly find in any other place, that you have the people from all the regions, races, colors, religions, living together in peace and harmony. And we will continue to spread the message of peace and harmony across the globe, wherever we are. So in the end, I am thankful to you for your time. And I must say that Gandhi is the need of all. Let us pledge that we will spread the message of coexistence, peace, and harmony across the globe. So thank you very much. To all the participants, I will mail you the feedback link and you will generate your certificates. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Goodbye, Mr. Bhatt.
Goodbye and
Wonderful
wonderful.
meeting you. Yeah,
you.
sure. Thank you very much.
Yes. Looking forward. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.